time. Just got to
Jake Paul has recently undergone a stunning transformation from a blogger to the best boxer on YouTube. Despite his impressive accomplishments, many question his legitimacy as a real boxer. So what led Jake to becoming a fighter, and can he ever become a champion? Jake as a child. Jake Paul began his boxing career relatively late by traditional boxing standards, starting at the age of 21. However, he's been involved in martial arts since childhood. He practiced both boxing and wrestling and has been a big fan of Muhammad Ali and Anderson Silva since a young age. To Jake, Ali and Silva were more than just idols. They influenced his future fighting style. While he may never match Ali's legendary speed, he has borrowed his hero's jab and footwork, as well as his tendency to taunt opponents. From Silva, Jake has taken the clinch, unique angles for attack, and again, trash talking. Jake has dreamed of knocking out opponents with counterattacks ever since he was a child, inspired by his idols. In this way, he found his fighting spirit early on and thought that boxing was his destiny. However, at some point, everything changed. Jake as a blogger. Jake's brother, Logan, became a popular Vine blogger and convinced Jake to join him. Jake devoted himself to blogging, and for years, sports took a back seat in his life. If you follow Jake's actions closely, you'll see that he often followed in his brother's footsteps without fully understanding what he wanted for himself. Even though Jake gained popularity and became one of the most famous bloggers on YouTube, he still felt like something was missing from his life.
Coming to the stage, it's Jake Paul!
This is why, when the trend of influencer boxing emerged, Jake eagerly accepted the challenge of fighting Deji at an event where his brother was also fighting. At this point, it became clear that Jake was different from Logan. While Logan was doing it for fun and money, Jake was obsessed with boxing. He spent all of his time training, found great coaches, and began to transform and harden his character.
It's crazy how far something will take you, crazy how far hard work will take you, and this beautiful sport that I owe my life to.
Thanks to his dedication and hard work, Jake emerged as a completely different person when he fought Deji. Jake the Boxer. In his first amateur fight, Jake exceeded everyone's expectations. He displayed excellent footwork, constantly attacking and employing tricks to easily defeat Deji, who was also a talented fighter. However, Jake's style and technique were still raw at the time of the fight, particularly his protection and stance. Many joked that Jake used his face instead of blocking, as he leaned towards his opponent and took hits to the face. He was waving his hands all over the ring. Deji broke his nose in the first round. After the injury, Jake became even more aggressive with his attacks, constantly leaning to the right to avoid getting hit by jabs. It looked very amateur. While he showed his promise in attacking, he was terrible in defense. From the very first fight, Jake faced criticism regarding his abilities and ambitions as a boxer. However, he remained unfazed by the negative comments. Jake saw this fight as a turning point, realizing that he could become a real boxer. He felt better than ever, and his next goal was to become a professional boxer. In his next fight against Gib, Jake worked on his weaknesses, raised his hands, and had a better fighting stance. He kept his right hand close to his jaw and maintained the right distance from his opponent. Eventually, he destroyed Gib with a front hook. Jake's style forces his rivals to press him, but he is comfortable with that. He recalls the images of Muhammad Ali in his head and catches his opponents with straight punches. In the fight against Gib, he used this tactic to great effect and emerged victorious.
And now he's down again, and that is it!
In the fight against Nate Robinson, Jake showcased even better defense, leaving the basketball player unable to hit him. He incorporated new techniques such as parrying and dodging, using more feints. However, it's challenging to gauge Jake's progress from such fights because opponents like Nate were not skilled enough. Hence, it wasn't surprising that Jake eventually scored a knockout. Jake Paul and MMA fighters. At this stage, it became clear that Jake and his brother had taken different paths. Jake made his own decision to continue in boxing, regardless of Logan's decision to stop fighting in the sport. Paul realized that to attain true success and recognition as a fighter, he needed to fight famous opponents. He started attacking MMA fighters, leading to the crushing defeat of Ben Askren. This was one of the easiest and most amateur knockouts of Jake's career, as he bullied Askren and knocked him out with 2 straight punches, while Ben couldn't do anything. Jake's striking technique and speed had improved significantly. Through the humiliation of Ben Askren, Jake was able to force his friend and former UFC champion, Tyron Woodley, to fight him. Paul's most formidable opponent was Woodley. Among Jake's rivals, no one could match the pressure of Woodley. Throughout the fight, Woodley relentlessly pressed Jake and almost knocking him out after Jake's left hook at a wrong moment. However, Jake learned from this mistake and vowed to never get caught off guard again. The fights with Woodley were a test for Jake's endurance and willpower, as he had never faced such a powerful fighter before. But in both fights, he was able to do the same thing, wear down Woodley and eventually knock him out in the second fight. This time, he showcased his perfect defense and executed more interesting attacks. But even more interesting that during the fight with Silva, Jake demonstrated his adaptability, as Silva exposed his main weakness. He was too slow on his feet when facing such an experienced opponent. Initially struggling to fight at his own distance, Jake eventually adjusted to Silva's style and used the clinch and close range to defeat the legendary Brazilian. Expectations from Jake. In fact, in each of his fights, Jake displayed remarkable progress in various aspects of boxing. He immediately started his career as a professional, whereas most boxers go through a smooth development phase in amateur fights. As a result, Jake had to make significant strides every time and show a lot more. Despite being criticized, Jake Paul is now ranked number 52 in the US and number 188 in the world on BoxRec, which is a great result after a few years of training. Whether it's luck or not, time will tell, but the fact remains that Jake has already become better than most novice boxers. The main phenomenon surrounding Jake Paul is that people will never accept him. Rather than believing that a guy can genuinely start a boxing career at 21 and reach great heights, everyone is always looking for reasons to discredit him as a real boxer. Will Jake Paul become a champion? Comparing Jake Paul to any other boxer at the 6-0 record stage is a strong argument in favor of a successful career for him. Most boxers, even legends like Muhammad Ali, Tyson, and Foreman, had objectively weaker opponents at this point in their careers. This doesn't mean that Jake is better than them, of course not, but it does mean that Jake's opposition is stronger than any fighter with a similar boxing record. If he continues to develop with the same success, then don't be surprised if we see Jake Paul in a title fight in 5 years.